My Nerd World.
Where's the revolution? Come on, people, you're letting me down. Where's the revolution? Come on, people, you're letting me down.
Welcome, Depeche Mode fans, and where do I start? Wow. It's episode number 6 of Depeche Mode, the podcast. I am your host, Jon Justice. I've had a chance to hear Spirit now several times, so this is my first official review of Depeche Mode's latest release, and I'll give you the details on how I had the opportunity to finally hear it, and basically I'm going to go song by song by song in the podcast this week. No audio this week. I decided that for those that were waiting for the official, doing that thing with my fingers, air quotes, for the official release, I felt that, you know what, for those that don't want to be spoiled or hear anything apart from hearing the snippets from the album in the intro and Where's the Revolution, I won't do what I'm eventually going to do, and that is, over the course of a few podcasts in the coming weeks after the album is released next week, I plan on sort of looking at the album in chunks and diving a little bit deeper into all the individual tracks from Spirit. And this is something that I intend to do as time goes on for a majority of the Depeche Mode albums. My goal here, apart from taking time out to talk about the band that I love so dearly and sharing your stories and my stories, is hopefully I can create a bit of an archive where if you want to, or in the future if I want to, go in and dig a little bit deeper or listen to a particular album and listen to essentially a commentary with it, this podcast here on My Nerd World, Depeche Mode the podcast, will be the catalyst to do so. So in the coming weeks, we'll continue to talk about Spirit once we've all had some time to digest it and really sort of zero in on our feelings about it. Look, I'm not going to lie. It's easy to kind of get swept up in the fandom, in the excitement of hearing new Depeche Mode. I'm not going to lie, I have not had an impact. I have not had a response or a gut feeling to a Depeche Mode release in a long, long time, the way that I have with Spirit. I really haven't. And that has me really, really excited. And a little bit, I don't want to say worried by any stretch, but you know, Dave Gahan was quoted as saying that if this ends up being his last album, that they would be satisfied with that. And the response so far seems to be pretty positive. It sounds as if, from what I've read so far from people like myself who've had an opportunity to listen, and again, I'll explain kind of how I got a chance to, it sounds like either you really, really get it and like it, or it's not zeroing in, it's not working for you. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of middle ground. I also have a couple of emails I'm going to be sharing with you, a couple of new listeners, one original listener. I need a name for it, but the other Jon Justice, not me, but the friend of the podcast, Jon Justice, has written me and given me his initial thoughts on the album. And I'll share that with you as well. And again, just up front, if you ever want to email, you can do that at talkshownerd@gmail.com, talkshownerd@gmail.com. And I really appreciate the feedback that I've received so far from you. And the comments, by the way, a lot of people have been commenting on YouTube, and my apologies for the fact that the podcast gets split up into essentially 3 different parts on YouTube. Because of the program that I use here at home, it automatically uploads it to YouTube, but it only does it in 15-minute increments, so you get kind of a part 1, 2, and 3. But there's been several people have been commenting on the podcast, and the downloads have just been really exciting in a way that I just did not expect. So just up front, thank you so much. It means I do this because of my love for the band. I'm not in it for anything other than that. Other than I love this band, and I love talking about it, and I love sharing what this band has meant to me and my life, and it's just awesome and really means a lot that you've been enjoying the podcast as much as I've been recording it. So, how did I get a chance to listen to Spirit before I dive into the album? Well, it leaked online. It's that simple. Basically, and I won't spend a ton of time on this, but I have a routine. And let me say, too, in total honesty, I'm a person that will download movies. I'm a person that will download leaked music. But I'm also a person that is going to go and purchase those items. I know that's no excuse. I know what a big deal a lot of people feel it is to go and listen to leaked music or to watch leaked movies using torrent sites. I get that. But, I kind of have my own code of ethics that I abide by. And if there's a movie that, if I'm going to take the time to go and download a movie, it is a movie that I'm going to end up buying. And I don't do that very often. With Depeche Mode, though, I'm hungry to hear this music. And I know that I'm going to be purchasing not only, this album, but, other stuff from the band, regardless of whether or not I end up hearing it leaked online. So this is being recorded on Wednesday, late in the afternoon. Yesterday afternoon, on Tuesday afternoon, I had gotten into a routine over the course of the past few days of looking for material online, just doing Google searches. And I have kind of a method to doing that so you're not wasting a lot of time looking at sites you looked at before. And I had gotten to the point where I was, every couple of hours, sometimes every hour, I'd hop online and I'd do a refresh search for Depeche Mode and Spirit, and I would do it on YouTube as well. And yesterday afternoon, The Worst Crime popped up on YouTube. And that was my first indication that, all right, the album's going to start leaking. And sure enough, within a matter of, maybe an hour and a half, I found out that on a Russian Depeche Mode forum, I translated it via Google Translate, and somebody had posted a link to the entire album. I guess there was some streaming sessions that went on, and somebody must have grabbed the stream and then uploaded it, which unfortunately for the band ended up forcing them, if you've been paying attention at all the past 24 hours since the leak happened, the band actually streamed the album today. They were planning on doing it next Friday, but I think to get out ahead of the leak, they decided to go ahead and stream it online for people to hear, which is really unfortunate. And I know that's probably really hypocritical of me to say, considering the fact that I went out there and looked for it, but it's unfortunate that the band had to go and do that. And I really hope, and I tweeted this a few times yesterday, because it's sincere and I mean it, that anybody who listened to the album online via the leak, I hope and I do trust that you will go and purchase I've already pre-ordered a copy. I will always buy a hard copy of the album. And I also am subscribed to Google Play. So I know I'll get it on Google Play with my monthly subscription, and they get something from that as well. But I do have the deluxe edition on order, because I always make sure they're like the last band left that I still get a hard copy of the album for. So, I heard Worst Crime, and I'll be honest, I wasn't all that impressed. It's probably my least favorite track on the album. But I'll get into a track-by-track breakdown here in just a moment. But then the whole album leaked. So I downloaded it and then basically threw on headphones and just went into absolute, Depeche Mode bliss. I was so happy to be hearing what I was hearing. And I approached my listening to the record in a much different way than I did in the past. And I really just kind of let the album wash over me. I remember that I was in Washington, D.C. when Delta Machine leaked, and I was actually in the hospital. I think I may have told this story on a previous podcast. I'm 44 years old, but unfortunately, because of some birth defects, I had to have an open heart surgery. I've had to have 2 open heart surgeries. I'm fine now, but I had to have 2 open heart surgeries. And in the first open heart surgery, right? See, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yeah, that's right. The first open heart surgery is when Sounds of the Universe came out. So I was actually in the hospital when they performed Sounds of the Universe on the British television show. I was in the hospital, and I think I had my wife play it for me down the phone, if I'm not mistaken. But several of the demos had leaked from that album. I know Fragile Tension had leaked, a demo of Hold to Feed and Comeback had also leaked. That ended up being drastically different than what the album was. And I liked those songs, and I liked Wrong quite a bit, but they didn't grab me the way that Spirit did. So when I listened to Spirit, I really just wanted to let the album kind of wash over me. I didn't want to think about the lyrics. I know it's a politically charged record. There is no doubt about that after listening to it, but it doesn't diminish, for me, the quality of the record. It just kind of makes me handle it differently. It makes me deal with the record differently. And, that's the power that Depeche Mode brings. And it's only been... since starting the podcast, it's almost been cathartic. It's almost been, and I think the second podcast was personal therapy. It almost was therapy while I kind of worked through how I listened to Depeche Mode and how I listened to it differently. Because, for example, recently I went back and I pulled out the People Are People non-album album, right? That's just the collection of singles and stuff that kind of surrounded Construction Time Again and Some Great Reward. I pulled that out, and I pulled out Construction Time Again. And I talked about this last week. And going back and listening to those albums, I was reminded of just how less accessible they were lyrically than when you get into the majority of Some Great Reward, Music for the Masses, Violator, Songs of Faith and Devotion, and really everything since then. Which kind of got me thinking a bit listening to this album, and I'll double back to that. Let me I'm just going to make a quick note so I don't forget. But listening to Construction Time Again and People Are People, those older songs that, some of which had a political angle to them, Everything Counts, for example, and and then The Landscape is Changing, it made me realize that when I first kind of discovered Depeche Mode, while many of the songs grabbed me on a lyrical level and spoke to me, there were other songs that I just really loved, regardless of the lyrical content. And I won't go down the same road I went to on a couple of podcasts ago, but it put me in a frame of mind that when I listened to Spirit, I wanted to go in with a much more open mind and just let the music sort of guide me rather than really thinking deeply about making an emotional connection because of the lyrics. And boy, did it ever wash over me. To me, this is a Depeche Mode that found its footing again. And that's not to say that I don't like what they've released since Songs of Faith and Devotion. Arguably, Songs of Faith and Devotion was the last Depeche Mode release that I really, truly just loved. I have liked quite a bit of what's come afterwards. There are some amazing tracks on all of the albums since then. I know Playing the Angel really grabs a lot of people, but there's stuff on Exciter that I really like, and I'm one of the few that really enjoy Sounds of the Universe. This almost feels like, Spirit almost feels like what it felt like they were trying to attempt on Sounds of the Universe. Sounds of the Universe has a very, very cohesive feel. But it just misses the mark on several of the tracks. And that's the one thing that for me has been plaguing a lot of the Depeche Mode albums, is that they've had the really, really good songs, but the sort of mediocre ones I just could not latch on to at all. And certainly it was the same way with Delta Machine. I mean, Delta Machine I really like, but there were, and I'm reaching into my Depeche Mode closet in my shelf next to me to grab it. Welcome to My World is great. Angel's great, but it felt a little thin. Heaven Never did it for me. Secret to the End, good in theory, but it's not one that I go back to very often. My Little Universe, it's okay. Slow has grown on me quite a bit. I absolutely love Broken. I like The Child Inside. Soft Touch, Raw Nerve, I'm one of the few people that really like that song. Should Be Higher had so much potential, but just didn't do it. The high-pitched singing of Dave didn't happen. I love Alone. Soothe My Soul is one of those tracks that I probably should love, but I don't find myself gravitating towards it. And Goodbye was, kind of just okay. And it's kind of been that way with every single Depeche record. And to an extent, Spirit's that way, but this just feels like a band that's got its footing again. And it feels like they're out of the rut. And it's felt like they've been in a bit of a rut. over the course of the past, 3 records, whether it's Playing the Angel, Sounds of the Universe, and Delta Machine. It just seems like they needed some other inspiration, and they got it by going more political.